Monk?
How's it going?
Pretty good, pretty good. A couple miscellaneous questions, if I may. First one is the Minox or Minox camera that Oswald had. Did that come from Bayo, or I guess his name's Perez or whatever? Or do you know?
Well, the official claim now, and according to Gus Russo and others, the Minox camera was claimed by Michael Payne, and the photographs were claimed to be been taken by Michael Payne, which is a total horseshit story.
Okay.
Unless Oswald stole the camera and put it in his gear, and that's where the police, with the search warrant, inventoried it and found it along with a light meter, and attached to the Minox was the standard spy chain with little bulbs on it so that you can hold it to specific differences to take pictures of documents, etc.
What if Michael Payne planted it? Oswald didn't steal it. Now, I'm not saying that...
The thing is that Dick Billings gave me Minox cameras and other photographic equipment to be delivered to various groups that were inserting reconnaissance teams into Cuba.
I see.
With the provision that Life would have first pick of the photographs taken. Later, sources showed that the one that I gave to Bayo specifically is the one that turned up in Oswald's possession.
I see. So...
by serial number.
Okay.
And, of course, Minox will not make a statement as to who they sold that serial numbered camera to. And obviously they sold it to a proprietary that was part of the intelligence community or Life.
Okay.
Time Life.
Okay. Now, do you...
And the pictures that were taken were of other interesting points which everybody refuses to identify.
Hey, now I was noticing that it seems like the time sequence of when Oswald went to work for, I guess it's Stovall Childs, the photography firm.
Yeah.
Okay. That the timing seems maybe interesting. Do you think that one of the reasons he may have been there, I believe the U-2 flights were restarted around that same time over flights of Cuba.
Well, they were continuous. They had been halted when McCone took over from Dulles. Over a period of time, the U-2 flights over Cuba were slowed down because we had to send a couple of extra U-2s to Taiwan, where they were based rather than at Sugi.
Well, I'm wondering if, do you think the reason...
U-2s flew out of Shreveport.
Do you think the reason that he may have had the job at Stovall Childs had anything to do with processing or developing U-2 film or photos from Cuba, or is that just wild speculation?
Well, the record indicates that he had access to that part of Stovall Childs that made military maps.
Yes.
And that many of these maps were of Cuba. Now, at the time, it was prohibited to purchase nautical, maritime, or aerial charts of the island of Cuba, supposedly to keep the independent groups from having at their disposal accurate public domain charts and maps that would assist them in their independent operations. So you couldn't purchase the damn things after the Bay of Pigs.
But Stovall Childs had those?
Yes, they did.
So
and it may well be that Oswald was getting some of those maps and charts, both nautical and aeronautical, so that he could turn them over to anti-Castro Cubans.
Mm-hmm. So you would maybe be using the Minox for that, to take photographs of them?
Yeah, maybe particular areas on the maps, and also attempt to get copies of the maps themselves once they were printed out. We now have a Defense National Mapping Agency, which in the Grenada invasion failed because the task force that was turned from headed toward the Mediterranean turned back towards Grenada. Nobody bothered to fly down charts of neither nautical or aeronautical charts for that task force. So we had a task force carrier ships that were approaching an area without proper charts, okay? And in the era of satellites, they could have downlinked those charts and maps, and we had Marines and Rangers and everybody else going in just using a local tourist road map that was photocopied and some aerial photographs. Which, if the problem is, they're big the security wonks are so afraid to put a request in for specific items, that it might tip somebody off. But they could have asked for charts reaching from Venezuela, Trinidad and Tobago, all the way up to Anguilla and Puerto Rico and Cuba, and not have excited anybody. But they failed to do that, so people that landed in Grenada didn't have the necessary charts, which would cause and did cause problems for calling in air support and everything else, and even the planning of the missions.
It's amazing how incompetent things can happen, even on such a high level.
Yeah.
It's such a simple thing.
That's why we have a Special Operations Command now.
Looks into all the logistics and the detail.
We have Central Command, and then we have a liaison from Central Command to Special Operations Command. Special Operations Command is here at Fort Bragg, where I'm at. Central Command is down in MacDill Air Force Base in Tampa, where Sun was stationed before. And now we have Southern Command stationed west of the airport in Miami, Florida. So now these are people that can reach out and have all of these things and have them updated. Many of the nautical charts that are in use today, the surveys were done by sailing vessels in the 19th century. I mean, that's how bad it is.
Yeah.
I mean, I bought charts up the yin-yang over the years wherever I could get them, some distance away from the southeastern United States, say in Texas. I made purchases in Aransas Pass, in Brownsville and other areas where they hadn't gotten the word, and still had a stockpile in the back room of nautical charts, and at some airports in the New Orleans area were able to acquire aeronautical charts that showed Cuba. But, hell, it wasn't until 1967 when the CIA put up for sale a couple of big barge loads of Second Naval guerrilla stuff that we acquired cargo chutes, personnel chutes, very costly things for a song, because we made a deal with the CIA guys to get them, and in some of these crates we found the charts. And I passed many of those charts off to Alpha 66 and other groups in 67, just as I was leaving for the West Coast in Vietnam. And they had never been able to acquire them here even up to 1967.
Jeez.
Because of this blockade or whatever, quarantine of selling charts on Cuba, especially ones that show in great detail certain coastal areas and harbors and etc.
Wonder why there's such...
The Washington assholes don't want people stumbling on things that they don't know that's in certain areas of Cuba, and they don't want people stumbling into those areas where they suspect some things, and they don't want people going public with it. And there are things that they know are in Cuba that they don't want in the public domain. They don't want people using those charts to aid them in navigating or doing airdrops or sea landings or whatever. And all it does is put these people's lives at greater risk. We're not talking about raids. We're talking about reconnaissance teams.
Right. And is that still in place now? This restriction on Cuban information?
No, because primarily because of Brothers to the Rescue and others. It's an interesting situation. As an aside, comparing with this Chinese 200-mile economic zone, etc., we recognize Cuba's authority up to the 24th parallel, okay, which is just south of Key West, and that whenever we or any other aircraft files a flight plan, let's say to Cozumel, Mexico, or Merida, you have to cross over that 24th, and the Brothers to the Rescue, when they go south in their searches, as soon as you're crossing the 24th parallel, which is only about 30 miles south of Key West, you have to call Havana Air Control and tell them what you're doing. And the situation is that the frequency is called high frequency if you're flying at a lower altitude, but a lot of planes don't carry the old high frequency transceivers, so you've got to be at altitude and call them on VHF, and the farther away you are from Havana, the higher you have to be to communicate with Havana, and it's a routine, and it's just like if you want to cross Cuba, you have to pay $50 to Air Cubana through their office in Montego Bay, Jamaica, or in Nassau, and go across 3 different corridors that they have, but anybody can do it. It showed that the one that I gave to Bayo specifically is the one that turned up in Oswald's possession.
I see. So
by serial number.
Okay.
And of course, Minox will not make a statement as to who they sold that serial numbered camera to. And obviously they sold it to a proprietor. And that's where the police, with the search warrant, inventoried it and found it along with a light meter. And attached to the Minox was the standard spy chain with little bulbs on it so that you can hold it to specific differences to take pictures of documents, etc.
What if Michael Payne planted it? Oswald didn't steal it. Hey, Jerry, it's Monk.
How's it going?
Pretty good, pretty good. A couple miscellaneous questions, if I may. First one is the Minox or Minox camera that Oswald had. Did that come from Bayo, or I guess his name is Perez or whatever? Or do you know?
Well, the official claim now, and according to Gus Russo and others, the Minox camera was claimed by Michael Payne, and the photographs were claimed to be been taken by Michael Payne, which is a total horseshit story.
Okay.
Unless Oswald stole the camera and put it in his gear.
Now, I'm not saying that...
The thing is that Dick Billings gave me Minox cameras and other photographic equipment to be delivered to various groups that were inserting reconnaissance teams into Cuba.
I see.
With the provision that Life would have first pick of the photographs taken. later sources